Madam Speaker, I rise to present and lay on the table sessional paper HR 55114, report of the, Madam Speaker, I rise to move in accordance with Standing Order 60. The House do now consider the Senate amendments.
Honourable members, the question is that the House do now consider the Senate amendments. All those in favour kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
The amendments to the Gaming and Latches Control Bill 2025 were circulated to all members of the House.
Honourable members, the question is that the amendments as proposed by the Senate to the Gaming and Lotteries Control Bill 2025 on 16th December 2025 be accepted. All those in favour kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
First,
I recognize the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I rise to present and lay on the table sessional paper HR 55114, report of the Auditor General for the year April 2016 to March 2017.
Honourable members, that paper is referred to the Joint Public Accounts Committee. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Food Security and New Growth Industries.
Madam Speaker, I rise to present and lay on the table sessional papers number HR 56114, Supplies Control Price Amendment, number 39, Regulations 2025. HR 57114, Supplies Control Price Amendment, number 40, Regulations 2025. HR 58114, Supplies Control Price Amendment, number 41, Regulation 2025. HR 59114, Supplies Control Price Amendment number 42, Regulations 2025. HR 6114, Supplies Control Price Amendment number 43, Regulations 2025.
Members, those papers are ordered to lie on the table.
presentation of reports from select committees.
Recognize the Honourable Chairperson of the Health and Human Development Committee.
I rise to present and lay on the table sessional paper number HR 61114, report from the Health and Human Development Committee on the Tobacco Control Bill 2025.
Honourable members, that report is ordered to lie on the table. I recognize the Honourable Chairperson of the Public Service, Labour, Industry and Trade Committee.
Madam Speaker, I rise to present and lay on the table sessional paper number HR 62/1/14, report from the Public Service, Labour, Industry and Trade Committee on the Occupational Safety and Health Bill 2025.
Honourable members, that report is ordered to lie on the table.
Introduction of bills.
Recognize the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, this is the National Health Insurance Authority Bill 2026. I rise to introduce a bill for an act to repeal the NHI provisions contained under Part 7 of the Social Security Act, Chapter 44 of the Substantive Laws of Belize Revised Edition 2020, and place them under this Act to establish the administrative framework and other necessary mechanisms to enable the provision of equitable, accessible, affordable, and quality healthcare services to all eligible persons for the attainment of universal health coverage, to facilitate people-centered healthcare that meets the needs of the population, to promote efficiency in healthcare administrative operations to enable sustainability through appropriate allocation of resources in healthcare in collaboration with the ministry responsible for health and for matters connected therewith and incidental to. Madam Speaker, this bill has the recommendation of the Cabinet, but if you can allow me as way of explanation of this bill, let's start by saying that we on this side believe that this is of profound national importance. The National Health Insurance Authority Bill of 2026 represents the single most significant transformation of our nation's healthcare system in a generation. Its purpose is clear, its mandate is urgent, and is fulfilling the People's United Party and this government's commitment to social justice principle. For too long, the quality of health care a citizen receives has been dictated by their ability to pay. This is a fundamental inequity that our nation must resolve. Today, we take a decisive step to fulfill our solemn promise made to the Belizean people in Plan Belize, the establishment of a universal, single-payer national health insurance (NHI) system that guarantees quality health care as a right, not a privilege. Need I remind everyone here that the UDP's health policy was so bad that Belizeans had no other option but to follow the UDP's health policy, go to Merida. This bill I present today does not merely adjust existing mechanisms, it creates an entirely new foundation. Cabinet is convinced that a new, independent and powerful statutory body, the National Health Insurance Authority, will be better than what presently exists. This legislation empowers the NHI Authority with several critical mandates to achieve universal coverage. It will be the sole public payer and strategic purchaser. The authority will act as a single consolidated public payer for all essential primary health services. This centralized power is not for control, but for responsibility to ensure every dollar is spent efficiently to achieve the best health outcomes for our population. It will define and guarantee a universal package of inpatient and outpatient benefits. This package will be developed based on clinical evidence, cost effectiveness, and the principle of equity, ensuring all covered services are available to every Belizean without financial hardships. The authority will contract with both public and private healthcare providers, hospitals, clinics, and professionals to deliver the guaranteed benefits. It will implement modern, transparent, and fair payment systems that rewards quality, efficiency, and positive patient outcomes. It will establish a national registry of all citizens and residents eligible for NHI coverage and manage a fair, progressive, and sustainable system for pooling government and other funds like FUI Bolido to finance this vital national asset. This legislative step is the cornerstone of a detailed multi-year implementation plan. As publicly outlined, the timeline is ambitious but achievable. Policy formulation and stakeholder engagement was completed in December of 2025. Legislative phase. This bill is tabled in Parliament today, February 2026. Institutional setup to be completed by June 2026. proof of concept and phased rollout, running from July 2026 through 2027. This will cover the entire Cayo district by beginning to make services available as soon as membership registration is completed. Madam Speaker, we are about to sign contracts with different providers in the Cayo district. I think we will do it probably in the next week. But just as matter of information, the proposed distribution of primary healthcare provider clinics for the Cayo district. In Benqueviejo del Carmen, we have 2 clinics for a population estimated at 12,000. In San Ignacio, you have 2 clinics for a population estimated at 20,000. Santa Elena, 2 clinics for a population estimated at 16,000. In Docron, 1 clinic for a population estimated at 8,000. Blackman Eddy, 1 clinic for 6,000 people. And in Belmopan, 3 clinics for an estimated population of 39,000 people. It's important to note that of these clinics, Madam Speaker, 4 of them, or as they refer to PCPs, are public facilities, meaning that even our clinics under the Ministry of Health they've also been applying to provide these services for the public. Madam Speaker, we feel that the full operationalization of NHI is targeted for the end of 2027. In preparing this bill, we have looked to international best practices and contemporary reforms. We have looked at areas like Costa Rica and also Uruguay, among other countries, and also in the Caribbean. Our NHI Authority Bill aligns with these modern directions by mandating 1, price transparency and accountability, requiring clear costing and claims data from our contracted providers. Madam Speaker, what they do at the NHI, at the authority, they make sure that all of these clinics are providing the correct information. Presently, I think there are 2 or 3 that have been penalized for not providing the right information, and they've been penalized in the thousands of dollars. And should they continue that practice, they are going to be kicked out completely out of providing the service for NHI. With drug costing control, that's the second one, drug cost control. Exploring mechanisms similar to international efforts to reform pharmacy benefit managers, the BPMs, and to ensure that the NHI authority can negotiate fair drug prices on behalf of all Belizeans. Under this authority, it is a completely computerized system that the medicines that are provided to some of these pharmacies, they are controlled, they have to keep track of every single piece of medicine that is provided under the NHI. And again, there have been 2 pharmacists that I think that they will stop using their services because they have been over-prescribing medication just so that they can, quote unquote, make the sale. That is the kind of control that we have under this service, under the National Health Insurance. And thirdly, Madam Speaker, investing in primary care and prevention, prioritizing funding for community health centers and rural health programs, recognizing that a healthy population is the foundation of a sustainable nation. Madam Speaker, the journey of this bill through the legislative process begins now. We invite all stakeholders, health professionals, hospital administrators, business leaders, civil society, and every citizen to engage constructively. We do not underestimate the scale of this undertaking. It is a complex financial, administrative, and operational endeavor. However, the cost of inaction is far greater, measured in lives diminished, productivity lost, and injustice perpetuated. For instance, Madam Speaker, to give you another example, under the NHI now, some of our most deadliest diseases are diabetes and hypertension. And so, once you are registered under the NHI, you can go there every month. They're going to be checking on your pressure. They're going to checking on your lifestyle. They're going to give you your medicine for your pressure and also for your diabetes. Many instances, our citizens go into dialysis simply because they were not able to get the medication. As was pointed out by the people at NHI when they made, I think it was Dr. Daisy Mendes, when she made a presentation to cabinet. They said there's a person that suffers from diabetes and hypertension. The medication alone costs them approximately $650 a month. Under the NHI, I think it costs them something like $20. We believe that it is cheaper to keep our people healthy than then to try to save them after they get very sick. It pains me, and I'm sure that all of our colleagues in this room, it pains us to hear when one of our supporters or voters or a citizen or a family member needs dialysis. And because the number of services that we confront, or the number of spots that we can provide, it's full, and all the people are waiting for somebody to die. For somebody to die so that they could take their spot. I don't think that's the beliefs that we want for, Madam Speaker. And that is why we believe that the National Health Insurance, which was started under PUP government under the leadership of Said Musa in the early 2000s, we believe that this is the way for us to provide quality healthcare services to every citizen in this country, regardless if they can pay or not. So, Madam Speaker, the cost of inaction is far greater, measured in lives diminished, productivity lost, and injustice perpetuated. This NHI authority bill is more than a policy. It is a covenant between the government and its people, affirming that your health is our national priority. It is a commitment to build a system where a child in a remote village has the same claim to expert care as a child in the capital, where a family is protected from medical bankruptcy, where our nation's health is our nation's wealth. Madam Speaker, I am pleased to inform the good people of Cayo that the signing of the provider contracts will take place on February 19th at 10 a.m. in Babapan. And in San Ignacio at 2 p.m. Once these contracts are signed, the 80,000 eligible residents of the Cayo district can begin to register with a primary health provider, the clinic of their choice. Soon thereafter, these registered members will be able to access all the services that NHI delivers. I cannot get tired of seeing the stories, Madam Speaker, of people that have been registered in the NHI, and I've said it in cabinet. in Orange Walk when I was passing through one of the clinics. I saw this man and his wife and his two kids. And I know him, so I stopped. I said, you know, in Spanish, ¿qué pasó? ¿Cómo están? He said, estamos acá enfermos. He said, we're a bit sick. He said, venimos a NHI. By Johnny, es lo mejor cosa que pudieran hacer. That's the best thing you could have done to provide NHI because they look at 4 of us and all we paid with medicine was $20. That is providing social justice at its core, Madam Speaker, to ensure that all our citizens have access to quality health care from us, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, presently, countrywide, there are 342,000 persons with a valid Social Security card eligible to register for NHI. Of those, 214,000 persons have registered and are active users of the NHI services. Madam Speaker, I commend this bill to this House and I urge all members to give it their full and thoughtful support. Let us make history together. Thank you.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Health and Human Development Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to repeal the NHI provisions contained under Part 7 of the Social Security Act, Chapter 44 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020.
Members, we have 4 additional introduction of bills, and after that I will take the minister's statement. It's an oversight on my part. I just misread the numbering. So that really should have been before the introduction. My apologies, Minister. We'll take that after all introduction. I recognize the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to introduce a bill for an act to give effect to the decision of the heads of government of CARICOM to authorize nationals of the participating member states to enter, re-enter, and remain freely within Belize in accordance with the provisions of the Protocol on Enhanced Cooperation and for matters connected therewith and incidental thereto. This is the Caribbean Community Free Movement and Contingent Rights Bill 2026. Madam Speaker, this bill has the recommendation of the Cabinet. With your permission, Madam Speaker, I'll just say a few words by way of introduction. This bill provides a clear legal framework within which Belize will continue to manage the entry, stay, and participation of CARICOM nationals. It offers clarity for Belizeans, certainty for institutions, and consistency in the administration of free movement, formalizing arrangements that were already operational but not yet codified in law. This bill is the culmination of a regional decision taken at the 49th meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM in July last year. At that meeting, Belize, together with Barbados, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Barbados, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, was authorized to proceed with full free movement among ourselves. This mechanism allows willing member states to advance regional integration in a structured and responsible manner, while wider discussions continue within the community. Pursuant to that decision, Belize committed to begin implementation on 1st October 2025. And since that date, our immigration and border authorities have been administering the system in a secure, orderly, and efficient manner. Official reporting shows that 83 CARICOM nationals have entered under the free movement framework. These entrants have primarily been business persons, professionals, athletes, and short-term visitors. Of these, only two persons are currently residing in Belize under indefinite stay, demonstrating that the regime operates as intended without placing pressure on public services or public order. This experience mirrors broader regional trends. Under earlier CARICOM mobility mechanisms which predate this enhanced regime, there are over 2 million documented free mobility movements across the Caribbean community between 2006 and 2017. Much of this movement occurred following the expansion of skills certificates and the removal of work permit requirements for approved categories. These long-standing patterns demonstrate that free movement supports commerce, addresses labor gaps, strengthens tourism and services, and enhances regional cooperation without undermining public order or national stability. The bill clearly establishes who qualifies under the free movement regime, limiting eligibility strictly to nationals of the participating CARICOM member states listed in the bill's schedule, as well as their qualifying family members. It defines key terms clearly, ensuring there is no ambiguity in interpretation or application. It grants eligible CARICOM nationals the right to enter, re-enter, reside, and work in Belize indefinitely without the need for visas, work permits, or residency permits once the prescribed conditions are met. These conditions include possession of a valid travel document, proof of address, and the means to depart if necessary. Importantly, Belize retains full sovereign authority to refuse entry or revoke rights on established grounds, including national security, public order, public health, or where an individual may become a charge on public funds. A central feature of this bill is its treatment of contingent rights. CARICOM nationals lawfully residing in Belize will enjoy rights broadly comparable to Belizeans in critical areas of daily life. These include the right to seek and engage in employment, establish and operate businesses, access banking services, education, and healthcare services. Madam Speaker, this bill is firmly grounded in the national interest. It does not weaken Belize's border controls, nor does it dilute our sovereignty. On the contrary, it strengthens our ability to manage mobility through law rather than administrative measures, preserves robust safeguards, ensures enforcement authority, and provides mechanisms for revocation where conditions are breached. The benefits to Belize are tangible. Free movement enhances labor mobility at a time when skills shortages exist across the region. It promotes entrepreneurship, investment, and knowledge transfer. It positions Belize as a leader within CARICOM, committed not only to integration in principle, but to implementation in practice. Just as importantly, it guarantees reciprocity. Belizeans will enjoy equivalent rights in other participating member states, expanding opportunities for work, study, and enterprise abroad. Very important. So if we have Belizeans out there who are interested in going to live and work invest, open businesses in Barbados, in Dominica, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This establishes that legal reciprocity. This legislation, Madam Speaker, is timely, it is necessary, and it is responsible. It codifies a system already in operation, provides legal clarity, and strengthens safeguards, and advances Belize's regional commitments. Thank you.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to give effect to the decision of the heads of government of CARICOM to authorize nationals of the participating member states to enter, re-enter, and remain freely within Belize in accordance with the provisions of the Protocol on Enhanced Cooperation and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Constitution and Religious Affairs, Indigenous Affairs, and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2026 that I rise to introduce it for the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to expand the powers of traffic wardens to include the enforcement of and carrying out of duties under the Motor Vehicle Insurance Third-Party Risk Act, and for matters connected therewith and incidental thereto. Madam Speaker, if you'll allow me to provide a few remarks with respect to this bill. As presently drafted, neither the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act nor the Motor Vehicle Insurance Third-Party Risk Act grants traffic wardens, whether for the Department of Transport or municipal authorities, the authority to arrest or issue violation tickets for offenses under the Motor Vehicle Insurance Act, including the following: 1, using a motor vehicle not covered by third-party risk insurance, failure to fix and display insurance disc on motor vehicle, failure to provide name and address upon request of a police officer, failure to provide the name and address of owner of motor vehicle upon request of a police officer, and failure to provide identity of driver of motor vehicle upon request of police officer. Where officers on duty encounter any of the above infractions and are not sworn as special constables, their only lawful course of action is to refer the matter to a police officer. Accordingly, the bill seeks to amend Sections 3 of the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, Chapter 230 of the Substantive Laws of Belize 2020, to broaden the authority of traffic wardens, both from the Department of Transport and municipal authorities, to include the enforcement of and the carrying out of duties under the Motor Vehicle Insurance Third-Party Risk Act. Madam Speaker, this bill has the recommendation of Cabinet. Thank you.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Public Utilities, Transport, and Communications Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to amend the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, Chapter 230 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Constitution and Religious Affairs, Indigenous Affairs, and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I rise now in a related bill for an act to amend the Motor Vehicle Insurance Third-Party Risk Act, Chapter 231 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to empower traffic wardens to require the production of insurance certificates to increase the penalties for using a motor vehicle without insurance and to provide for matters connected therewith and incidental thereto. Again, Madam Speaker, I ask if I may be able to read a few comments to elaborate on this bill. So the penalty for insurance-related offenses has remained unchanged since 1999 and no longer provides an adequate deterrent to violations under the Motor Vehicle Insurance Act. For instance, the most common offense, using a motor vehicle without insurance, currently carries a penalty of a fine not exceeding $400 or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months or both. Where any other offense is committed under the Act and no specific penalty is prescribed, Section 16 provides that the offender is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $200 and to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 months. Accordingly, this bill seeks to amend the Motor Vehicle Insurance Third-Party Risk Act, Chapter 231 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to increase the penalty for the offense of, quote, using a motor vehicle not covered by third-party risk insurance, unquote, for a fine not exceeding $400 or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months to a fine not exceeding $1,000 or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 8 months. Additionally, the bill seeks to amend the general penalty in Section 16 of the Act, increasing the penalty for the other prevalent offenses identified from a fine not exceeding $200 or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 months to a fine not exceeding $600 or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months. Madam Speaker, this bill also has the recommendation of Cabinet. Thank you.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Public Utilities, Transport and Communications Committee for examination, consideration and report.
Bill for an act to amend the Motor Vehicle Insurance Third-Party Risk Act, Chapter 231 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020. Statement by Minister.
I recognize the Minister of Public Utilities, Energy and Logistics.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. I rise with your permission to address this Honorable House and members of the public on the matter concerning the proposed acquisition of SMART by BTL. Given the level of public interest and the importance of the telecommunications sector to our economy, it is important that this process proceeds carefully, transparently, and in accordance with the law. The Prime Minister has instructed that there be a pause in discussions related to this matter. This pause is intended to allow the parties involved to further engage the public in a genuine, open, and cordial way, and to ensure that the proper regulatory process is followed. Any proposed acquisition of this nature must first be reviewed by the Public Utilities Commission, which is the independent body mandated to regulate the telecommunications sector. The expectation is that a formal submission of the proposed acquisition will be made to the Public Utilities Commission if and when the boards of the Social Security Board and the Belize Telemedia Limited approve the acquisition, allowing the PUC to consult thoroughly, deliberate on the pros and cons, and make a determination based on evidence, law, and the public interest. Even if this proposed acquisition does not proceed, the PUC has already begun an independent process to determine if BTL is a dominant player in the market. and is prepared to make attendant regulations to govern such a scenario to ensure that consumers are fully protected. Our role is not to preempt or substitute the work of the regulator, but to respect and uphold the integrity of the regulatory framework. Issues such as competition, consumer choices, service quality, pricing, and long-term sector sustainability, among other factors, must be carefully examined. The people of Belize must be the ultimate beneficiaries. The government assures Belizeans that this process will be guided by transparency, fairness, and due process. The interests of consumers and the national interest will remain paramount. This government, through the Ministry of Public Utilities, will continue to keep the public informed as this process moves forward. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I move that at its rising today, the House adjourn to a date to be fixed by the Speaker.
Members, the question is that the House at its rising today adjourn to a date to be fixed by the Speaker. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Public business bills for second reading.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Rural Transformation, Community Development and Local Government on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Immigration, Governance and Labor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is the Occupational Safety and Health Bill 2025. Madam Speaker, I move the second reading of a bill for an act to establish the National Occupational Safety and Health Advisory Committee and the Occupational Safety and Health Inspectorate to provide for improved standards for occupational safety and health of workers and other persons at work, to provide for duties and obligations of employers, workers, self-employed persons, manufacturers, suppliers, installers, inspectors, and other persons at work, to repeal the Factories Act, Chapter 296 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the member for Orange Walk East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would definitely want to rise to offer my support, but before I get into my prepared remarks, Madam Speaker, I must make this comment that I find it deeply disappointing that on the second reading of such an important and long overdue piece of legislation, a bill that directly protects the lives, health, and safety of Belizean workers, the opposition chose boycott over responsibility. Right. One has to ask, does the leader of the opposition and the UDP truly care about Belizean worker?
Absolutely not.
Because if they did, Madam Speaker, they would be here in this House today, debating, contributing, and standing up for the very people this Occupational Safety and Health Bill is designed to protect. Madam Speaker, leadership is not about absence. Leadership is about showing up, and that is what this PUP government is doing today. Instead of boycotting, Madam Speaker, they should have come into this chamber and shown the Belizean people whether they genuinely support safe workplaces, stronger protections, and better standards for our workers. And let us not forget, they had 13 long years and nothing was done. Today, it is a PUP government under the steady and committed leadership of Prime Minister John Briceño that is delivering real protections for Belizean families. Madam Speaker, while they walk away, we get the work done. This side of the House will always choose progress over politics and people over posturing. Now that I have gotten that off my chest, Madam Speaker, I would like to go back to my notes.
Everything come on.
So I rise, Madam Speaker, in full support of the Occupational Safety and Health Bill 2025. A bill that is not only about regulation, but about protection, dignity, and the fundamental right of every Belizean worker to return home safe and healthy at the end of the workday. At its core, this legislation recognizes something simple but powerful, that safe work is a public health issue, an economic issue, and a human rights issue. For far too long, Madam Speaker, our legal framework has relied on an outdated Factories Act that focuses narrowly on traditional manufacturing. But Belize today is different. Our economy has expanded into agriculture, construction, healthcare, maritime services, tourism, and many emerging sectors. Our laws must evolve with that reality. This bill introduces a modern, comprehensive framework that applies across all workplaces and emphasizes prevention, risk management, and shared responsibility. From a health perspective, Madam Speaker, the need is clear. Every workplace injury, every chemical exposure, every untreated ergonomic strain, every mental health stressor, these are not abstract issues. They show up in our clinics, our hospitals, and our national health system. They affect families. They affect productivity. They increase healthcare costs. And they place avoidable burdens on our public services. Prevention, Madam Speaker, is always better and cheaper than treatment. This bill moves us decisively in that direction. It establishes a National Occupational Safety and Health Advisory Committee and strengthens an Occupational Safety and Health Inspectorate within the Labor Department to ensure inspection, guidance, and enforcement. These structures, Madam Speaker, will allow us to move from reactive responses to proactive prevention. It clearly defines duties for employers and employees alike. It mandates risk assessment, training, and preventative measures. It requires workplace safety committees so that workers themselves have a voice in shaping safer environments. I am very happy to understand that we even have members of the union here today, something they have championed for this very important bill. Most importantly, Madam Speaker, this bill protects workers' rights, including the right to refuse unsafe work without fear of penalty and protection for whistleblowers who report dangerous conditions. That is a major step forward in fairness and accountability. Madam Speaker, as Minister of Health and Wellness, I am particularly encouraged that this bill recognizes emerging and critical risks, including mental health, chemical safety, biological agents, and ergonomic hazards, and provides targeted measures for high-risk sectors such as the agriculture, construction, healthcare, and maritime industries. These are precisely the sectors where we see preventable injuries and illnesses affecting Belizean families. This legislation, Madam Speaker, is also consistent with our international commitments. It aligns Belize with International Labour Organization standards and our decent work obligations, strengthening our reputation as a country that values both workers and responsible business practices. And let us be clear, good safety policy is good economic policy. Safer workplaces mean fewer injuries and fatalities, lower health care costs, improved productivity, higher worker morale, and stronger businesses. In other words, Madam Speaker, protecting workers strengthens the economy. It's not a burden, it is an investment. I also want to commend the extensive consultation process behind this bill, engaging employers, unions, civil society, and multiple ministries, including the Ministry of Health and Wellness, ensuring what we bring today reflects national consensus and practical realities. Madam Speaker, this bill sends a clear message. Development must never come at the expense of the health and safety of our people. As a government, we are saying that every construction worker, every farmer, every nurse, every technician, every public officer, every Belizean worker matters. Their safety matters. Their dignity matters. Their life matters. And for this reason, Madam Speaker, and in the strongest possible terms, and on behalf of my great people of Orinjoa East that is here, I support the Occupational Safety and Health Bill, and I urge our members of this Honorable House to do the same. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognize the member for Belize Rural Central.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, our visitors in the gallery. It is a real and distinct pleasure to stand here this afternoon at the first working session of the newly renovated National Assembly. Madam Speaker, I'm sure I speak for this side of the House when I say that this is a stupendous and spectacular renovation that has been done to this space. And I think that perhaps the workers of the National Assembly here will be very happy with their new and technologically advanced space to work in, and hence it is a pleasure to speak on this bill. As chair of the Public Service, Labor, Industry and Trade Committee, I am happy to say, Madam Speaker, that on this OSH bill, the Occupational Safety and Health Bill, we had a bumper attendance of stakeholders when this bill was in committee stage over at the then temporary quarters of the George Price Center of the National Assembly. Madam Speaker, we had a true tripartite representation from government, from employers, and from employees. The room was a small room, but it was full. We had people from the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, various entities, the trade unions, the PSU, and I'm very happy to say that the submissions on this bill were very, very useful and helpful. We also in committee considered a huge number of recommendations and amendments, and I believe I can say on behalf of the Ministry of Labor that many, many of the recommendations have been taken into account in this bill today. the Occupational Safety and Health Bill. And of course, Madam Speaker, not to sound bossy or anything, but it had to be a PUP administration to bring this bill to the level where we are having the second reading of it today, and we can put in our reasonable comments. I must endorse the statement of the member from Orange Walk East that it is a deep disappointment that there is nobody on that side of the house, on the other side of the house today. It is a crying shame, as a matter of fact, Madam Speaker, because this Occupational Safety and Health Bill goes to the root of our Belizean reality and the protection of all persons involved. This bill provides for the National Occupational Safety and Health Advisory Committee. Very importantly, this bill also outlines the duties of employers, workers, self-employed persons, manufacturers, suppliers, installers, and other persons at work. There is also the establishment of the committee. There are prohibitions against reprisals or related activities. There are grounds for refusal of work and investigations. It talks also about hazardous substances, chemicals, biological agents, and physical agents. There is the notification of occupational safety and health accidents and diseases, and the duty to keep record and register of accidents and diseases. And it goes on, Madam Speaker. I certainly couldn't go into every single section in this bill today, but it is important to note for the record, Madam Speaker, that in the definition section of the bill, there is a very clear definition of accident, of injury and bodily injury, of domestic work and who is a domestic worker, who is an employer, what is a hazardous substance, and of course, going back to the fact that there will not only be a National Occupational Safety and Health Advisory Committee, but also an inspectorate. The bill also defines risk assessment, who is a self-employed person, and also an important definition of worker, Madam Speaker. And if you allow me just to quote very briefly, worker means any person who performs work for an employer under a contract of employment, whether written or oral, express or implied, and who receives or is entitled to receive remuneration in exchange for services. The ministry, for the time being responsible for labor, shall be the ministry involved and the minister thereof. And like I say, Madam Speaker, not only will there be a good advisory committee with committed and competent technical people, but also there will be inspectors under the Act. Madam Speaker, I won't go on. I believe, once again I mentioned it, but I want to reiterate that the Ministry of Labor took time to go over every recommendation that was made by all our partners. And I believe that this bill, so many years in the pending, that it had to take a PUP government to bring it now to fruition. I think that this bill is something that we should all support. I give my full support, and again, I think I speak for us on this side of the House, that this was really an idea whose time has come. It's due and overdue, but we are getting it done today. I offer my personal vote for it, and I encourage all of us to support the Occupational Safety and Health Bill 2025. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member for Corzalby.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, colleagues, our friends in the galley, our visitors. Madam Speaker, permission to use my notes. I rise in strong support of the Occupational Safety and Health Bill. I'd like to speak on it from the perspective of human development, family protection, and gender equality. Madam Speaker, I think it's well established that this bill is long overdue. And I know it's disappointing that there is no one to really debate the bill with, but it's really, well, it's disappointing. It's not surprising that members from the other side chose deliberately not to be here. It can really send home the idea that the important bills that we should be fighting for, that we should be working towards, are really not their concern. For nearly 2 decades, occupational safety and health legislation remained stagnant in this country. And for 13 uninterrupted years under the previous administration, this bill was left unmoved, it was left ignored, despite repeated calls from workers, from the unions, and from other stakeholders. And that inaction came at a real cost. Preventable injuries and illnesses continued to occur, families lost income, children faced instability, and households, entire households, were pushed into vulnerability. But today, this bill represents a decisive correction. This legislation repeals the outdated factories law, a law of limited scope that no longer reflects or works in the realities of Belize's modern, diverse economy. And this new framework protects all workers across all sectors and establishes clear, modern responsibilities for employers, workers, suppliers, and designers. And this clarity is fundamental, Madam Speaker, for prevention and for accountability, ensuring everyone who shapes the work environment shares responsibility for safety. Madam Speaker, this bill mandates practical life-saving measures we know are needed. It requires, as has been said, risk assessment, safety training, and personally, the provision that most called my attention is the provision of personal protective equipment. It also provides protections against falls and machinery hazards, because those are among the most common causes of workplace injury. Madam Speaker, from a human development perspective, these protections matter. Workplace injuries or deaths do not only affect the worker, they affect entire families. Income loss, disrupted education for children, and increased caregiving burdens disproportionately impact women, particularly women, heads of households, and single-parent families. Preventing workplace harm is therefore a direct investment in family stability and child well-being. So from a gender perspective, this bill advances the objectives of the revised National Gender Policy 2024 to 2030, because women remain overrepresented in care work, in the service industries, in domestic work, and in informal employment. And these sectors are often facing higher occupational risks and weaker protections. So by strengthening standards and enforcement across all sectors, this bill, Madam Speaker, helps close those long-standing gaps and supports women's sustained participation in the workforce. This legislation is a product of over a decade of development and extensive stakeholder consultation. It reflects a tripartite collaboration between the government, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the National Trade Union Congress of Belize. As the past BCCI President Catherine Megan noted, it is a practical approach balancing worker protection with business sustainability. This bill, Madam Speaker, is also aligned with International Labour Organization Conventions number 155 and 187 and supports Belize's Decent Work Country program. It meets Belizean needs while reflecting international best practices. Madam Speaker, at its core, this bill is about what people on this side of the chamber hold most dear. It is about people. It affirms a very simple principle that no Belizean should have to risk their life, they shouldn't have to risk their health or their family's security to earn a dignified living. And so I commend the current Minister of Labor and the former Minister of Labor and their teams for advancing this long-stalled but essential legislation, and I urge all honorable members to support it. In doing so, Madam Speaker, we correct years of inaction. We modernize labor protections and send a clear message that under this government, under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister John Briceño, government worker safety, family stability, and human dignity are non-negotiable. Madam Speaker, we are right on track, and I fully support this bill, and I urge everyone to support this bill also. Thank you.
Speaker, as a member of the committee with Minister Dolores Balaramous Garcia, we sat down many times with the public and we have an interaction and they make their adjustments and their corrections. As we visit Spanish Lookout on Monday when the President of Guyana was here along with our Prime Minister, Honorable John Briceño, we went to quality poultry products, and we saw the amount of people working there with the chickens to make sure they are there for us on the Belizean table. But I want to applaud them for the technological advancement and likewise machinery to process those chickens. And with this bill now, it will benefit the Belizean worker as a whole. And I hope that tomorrow morning, the NTUCB and the unions can go on national media to applaud the government of the People's United Party for such a wonderful idea to bring this bill to fruition after 17 years it lingered in the National Assembly. So I really appreciate, and I want to thank the Minister of Labor, past and present, for a wonderful job done.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, everyone in the gallery. It's good to have you back here after so long without being able to explain these situations in person and these bills in person. And I want to thank our party supporters for coming out today to support not only this OSH bill, but to also support the first reading of a National Health Insurance Bill, Madam Speaker, a very important bill for the people of Belize, for the health and the safety of the people of Belize. So thank you, supporters, for coming out today. Madam Speaker, I proudly rise on behalf of the people of Fort George, especially the workers of Fort George, and the workers all over this country, Madam Speaker, to support the Occupational Safety and Health Bill 2025. This is a bill, Madam Speaker, long overdue and could only get done by the government of the People's United Party. Madam Speaker, you have heard my colleagues say that it's a shame that the opposition is not here, and I agree with them. But in reality, even when they are here, they don't contribute anything. So they are not missed, Madam Speaker. And we are here to get the people's work done, and that is what we are going to do. But Madam Speaker, even when they had the opportunity, when they were on this side of the house, 13 long years, they did not look out for the Belizean people. They did not look out for the workers of Belize. They did not put this bill as a priority. No, Madam Speaker, they tossed it and said they would not be looking at it. Madam Speaker, so maybe it's a good thing they're not here, because they would have wanted to take credit for this bill this afternoon. But the Belizean people know exactly how this bill got to where it is. And it took a collaboration, a joint task force of the business community and the unions. And I certainly want to congratulate Minister Oscar Requena, who was the Minister of Labor, Minister Florencio, who was also the Minister of Labor, and Minister Karim Musa, who is the current Minister of Labor, and their teams for getting this bill across the finish line, Madam Speaker, because it's important to acknowledge the work done. I want to also put on the record my appreciation for the work done by members of the union, by the NTUCB, by especially the President of the APSSM and the former Chief Magistrate, Ms. Sharon Fraser, for the work that she did. She was really the spearhead of this project, Madam Speaker, to make sure that the Occupational and Safety Health Bill was kept on the forefront, and that all of the consultations, the work done, she was right there doing that. But certainly we had other people, and I know Sister Ella Waite was here today. Congratulations to her at the NTUCB for getting this bill across the finish line. But Brother Tate, Luke Martinez, a lot of guys were there working on this particular piece of legislation, Madam Speaker. The member from Belize Rural Central, she went into detail with the bill and the benefits of this particular piece of legislation. But if I could, just for the benefit of our listeners, just go through a few of the benefits that will be coming to workers and to employees with this legislation. Number one, improved workplace safety. This bill and its passage will reduce the possibility of accidents in the workplace, and just as important, hopefully eliminate workplace health dangers. Two, this bill will create mandatory safety committees to promote and monitor safety measures. Three, employers are mandated to report any workplace accidents. Very important, Madam Speaker. And employees are protected when reporting safety concerns and violations. They don't have to fear any type of reprisal, any type of discipline if they report any of these workplace safety violations. Number four, compliance will be enforced through notices, prohibition orders, and administrative penalties. And number five, on the regulatory side, Madam Speaker, there will be the creation of an OSH inspectorate and also the establishment of an OSH advisory committee. Madam Speaker, this bill aligns with the labor standards, such as ILO conventions, and it also supports Belize's Decent Work Country program. As the Minister of Public Service, I welcome this bill, Madam Speaker, for what it will do for public officers and how it will protect them in the workplace. Overall, this bill protects workers' rights, promotes a safety culture, which is also very important, Madam Speaker, a safety culture throughout our country, and it contributes to a healthier and more productive workforce. I support this bill, Madam Speaker, and I know that on this side of the House it has unanimous support. Thank you very much.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the Occupational Safety and Health Bill. And I think today is a very historic day in this National Assembly, Madam Speaker. And it's such a pity that the opposition could not be here today to be able to support two bills that are fundamental to the lives of our citizens. Madam Speaker, these two bills that one that we present and this one that we're debating, goes to the heart of the PUP. It goes to the DNA of the PUP. It goes to what the People's United Party stands for, social justice. And I know that from time to time there are people that want to tell us that, that we have moved away from our philosophical moorings and that we are no longer a party of social justice. Well, I want to tell them to look at what we are doing here today. It shows that the People's United Party firmly stands with social justice. I've already explained on the issue of NHI, but when it comes to this bill, to the Occupational Safety and Health Bill, I think it would have been a good, I think it would have gone well if members of the NTUCB would have been here to listen for us to finish the debate of the NTUCB, to show them. They're here? We do? I hope they're here. Okay, good. Because this is something that they have been waiting for so long. 17 long years. It is under the Musa administration we introduced the bill, and there was a lot of pushback, especially from the private sector. If I can remember, it was a bill that was too far-reaching, and it would have been very difficult to be able to implement. And so we started that discussion. But once the UDP came into government, they had no interest in looking after the well-being of labor. We, Madam Speaker, we are looking after the interests of labor. Just imagine, we are not going to agree at all the time, you know, between us and labor, but just last year, this government approved an increase for the government workers that's worth $112 million, Madam Speaker. $112 million. And today, we are debating and we're going to pass the Occupational Safety and Health Bill, something that they have been clamoring for all these long years. We cannot continue to treat our workers the way we have in the past. How many times have you been seeing people on the roof, working on the roof, not even on a rope or anything to be able to hold them? And when they fall down and they slip, too bad, so sad, they go to Social Security, and the employer they're never held responsible for what they're doing. Or if a worker were to be able to say, you know what, boss, I can't do this because it is dangerous, I could get hurt. And what the boss tell you? Go home. They fire you, and the employee can't do nothing. This bill is a comprehensive bill, Madam Speaker, and it covers, and my colleagues have covered certain sections of it. But what I like about this is on part 6, where it talks about prohibitions against reprisals and related activities. It protects the workers to be able to complain and to be able to tell them, I can't do that because this is dangerous. This is what this bill is doing, Madam Speaker. It is a historic bill. And I am so proud to be a part of this government that today we are going to pass the Occupational Safety and Health Bill, and to once again to prove to this country that the People's United Party is the party of social justice. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I fully support this bill.
Recognize the member for Toledo.
Speaker, I kindly ask that you put the question.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to establish the National Occupational Safety and Health Advisory Committee and the Occupational Safety and Health Inspectorate to provide for improved standards for occupational safety and health of workers and other persons at work, to provide for duties and obligations of employers, workers, self-employed persons, manufacturers, suppliers, installers, inspectors, and other persons at work, to repeal the Factories Act, Chapter 296 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to establish the National Occupational Safety and Health Advisory Committee and the Occupational Safety and Health Inspectorate.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I seek the indulgence of this House to defer the second reading of the Tobacco Control Bill 2025.
Honorable members, is it the wish of this Honorable House to defer the second reading of the Tobacco Control Bill 2025 to a later date? All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. The second reading of this bill is hereby deferred.
Committee of the Whole House on Bill.
Honorable members, the House will now resolve into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill that was read a second time. I would like to ask the media and those in the galleries to leave during this portion of the sitting. Thank you.
Bill for third reading.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Immigration, Governance, Rural Transformation.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Occupational Safety and Health Bill 2025 and passed it with amendments.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to establish the National Occupational Safety and Health Advisory Committee and the Occupational Safety and Health Inspectorate to provide for improved standards for occupational safety and health of workers and other persons at work, to provide for duties and obligations of employers, workers, self-employed persons, manufacturers, suppliers, installers, inspectors, and other persons at work, to repeal the Factories Act, Chapter 296 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. All those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to establish the National Occupational Safety and Health Advisory Committee and the Occupational Safety and Health Inspectorate.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Well, Madam Speaker, since the opposition is missing, I guess we have nobody to argue with. So, you have something on that? Madam Speaker, we're going to finish before 3 o'clock, which is not a bad thing at all. So they could continue missing House meetings. Nobody missed them anyway. Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Honorable members, the question is that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. The House now stands adjourned.